The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to another edition of Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on this late Friday evening on the 17th of April 2020, corresponding to the 23rd of Sha'ban 1441. Inshallah, as usual, we are broadcasting live on Luton 105.1 FM, and we are also broadcasting across the nation on with our sister station partners in Sheffield, Link FM, Peterborough, Salam, Derby, Nottingham, and also live not Facebook today, but live also broadcast via our Inspire FM app, and of course via the Inspire FM website. So if you've got the app or if you tuned in via the website, welcome. Nationally, welcome to all our listeners. Tune in, try to join today's discussion. We've got an interesting lineup today. Okay, it is live on Facebook too. Fantastic. Okay, Jazakallah khair for that. Producers put me in touch with the latest information. We are 01582481822 number here in the studio to get in touch with me and to get any of your views, questions across to our panel that we're going to speak into this evening. For social media messages, SMS, WhatsApp is the normal number 07794811822. So that's the number for your social media messages. And then again, inshallah ta'ala, we are currently working from home. But I have access to, remote access to the studio PC, so I can see your social media messages, alhamdulillah. So feel free to reach out and get in touch. Your SMS, WhatsApp messages do count, 07774811822, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so we continue to live through these unprecedented times, and however, as we're constantly hearing the reminder, let's be patient. Remain patient in these turbulent times, and remember, stay safe, stay home, inshallah ta'ala. Also a quick reminder, because we are broadcasting from our respective home makeshift studios, so if there is any technical issues, any interferences, or if the kids decide to run into my makeshift studio, then please apologize in advance with regards to those. But anyway, inshallah ta'ala, today is a very special Friday Night Live. Actually, we are a week away from Ramadan. I don't think that missed anyone's attention, that we are a week away from Ramadan, and the Ramadan spirit is beginning to kick in. You've seen a lot of the different issues, you've seen a lot of different reminders that are already being issued via social media, and of course it's only natural and it's only correct that we start getting into our minds, our physical self, our schedules, our planning around Ramadan. The blessed month of Ramadan is a month away, and no surprising, today's Friday Night Live is dedicated to the subject of preparing for Ramadan. And mashallah, we've got an interesting lineup. I have to say, a very interesting lineup. So between 6 and 7, I'm going to be speaking to Ustad Saad Tasleem. Ustad Saad Tasleem now from the Al-Maghrib Institute, which I believe is a US-based institute. I may be corrected if I'm wrong, but that Saad Tasleem we're going to be speaking to very, very shortly. And I'm told, I have to confess, I haven't spoken to Ustad Saad Tasleem previously, but I'm told he's very hot and very, very topical and very, very kind of in tune with our youth, right? So we're going to be speaking to Saad Tasleem about preparing for Ramadan, but with a special focus around youth, right? Inshallah ta'ala. So that's what we're going to be covering between 6 and 7, and then from 7 to 8 o'clock we continue with Ramadan and Ramadan preparation, but we're going to be looking at Ramadan in lockdown, and we've got a separate, kind of a wider perspective that is going to be presented by Ustad Ajmal Masroor, and he's going to be giving a live lecture. So it's going to be a live transmission of a lecture from brother Ustad Ajmal Masroor, who's going to be discussing Ramadan in lockdown. and that's going to be transmitted inshallah from 7 till 8 o'clock. So inshallah ta'ala, I believe a very positive and a fantastic lineup this evening inshallah ta'ala, to really get everyone in the spirit of mind in terms of preparing for Ramadan. And I think that is the number one focus that our mind should be towards and geared towards in the next 7 days as we close in to Ramadan inshallah. Right, so inshallah ta'ala, let's get into our first topic inshallah we're going to be covering, and as I said, is going to be preparing for Ramadan. We're going to be in conversation with Ustad Saad Tasleem inshallah ta'ala. Ustad Tasleem, I was going to say is going to be joining me shortly, but I've just seen my connection, and mashallah, I've already got Ustad Tasleem connected, so I'm going to go straight to Ustad Tasleem in about a minute inshallah. But just before I do that, very quickly, quick summary in terms of where we are, what is the context. We're in lockdown, right? Up and down the UK, we're in lockdown. Globally, we're in lockdown. Masajids pretty much unavailable. The collective atmosphere that we're going to be relying upon, or we normally rely upon, in terms of Ramadan, the Taraweeh, the Iftar, that Qiyam al-Layl is no longer going to be available to us, right? So that's something that people are definitely feeling. People are already talking about. People are going to miss, right? So the challenge is, how do we still utilize, benefit, optimize the output that we get from this month of Ramadan with those challenges that we're inevitably going to face, right? And we can see already very clearly that even in the case of UK, okay, the latest death toll that I believe I checked earlier was almost over 14,500, right? As 850 almost new cases were reported in the hospitals. And we know that the lockdown's been extended another 3 weeks. So pretty much it seems like it's going to be the whole of Ramadan in lockdown, right? So that's the context, right? Very quickly, quick introduction to Ustad Saad Tasleem. So if I've got it correct here, public speaker, educator, instructor at Al-Maghrib Institute, and a graduate of Medina University. On that note, inshallah, let me see if I can go straight to Ustad Tasleem inshallah ta'ala and get Ustad Saad Tasleem live. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Ustad.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Fantastic, man. So far 100% good with the technical issues. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah for joining us on Inspire FM on Friday Night Live inshallah ta'ala. Pray you're well inshallah ta'ala, and the community, family around you are also well.
Alhamdulillah, so far everything's going pretty well, alhamdulillah.
Right, and am I correct in also saying that Al-Maghrib Institute, sorry for my lack of research, but is also a US-based institute, and yourself are also based out in the US, is that correct?
So I guess it is based in the US, but we have like a Europe section. We have a section for Asia. So we have seminars all over the place. So I guess it was started in the US, in North America, but we do have seminars all across Europe and Asia and so on and so forth.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, fantastic. And very very quickly, let's just have a quick introduction to yourself for our listeners. So we, mashallah, we have a national listenership for Friday Night Live, and also for Inspire and the radio station, but in particular this particular program. Ustad Saad Tasleem, I mean, it's very interesting because I did read a bit about your background and profile. I don't know how much of that you like to share, but it's on the public domain, so I assume you're happy with that. MashaAllah, a very interesting background. Do you want to just give us a quick introduction to your background to some of our listeners?
Sure. I know there's quite a lot out there. Not all of that is by choice from me. I know sometimes, and I know it's kind of sad to say this, but when it comes to speaking and lecturing and so on and so forth, sometimes you get marketed, which is not really a term I like to associate with obviously teaching and Islamic da'wah. And oftentimes when I do get marketed, people often mention my past because it's kind of a way to draw in young people, which as long as it's not in praise of sins and so on and so forth, I don't have a problem with it. It's just really awkward for me to hear that stuff. But like I said, I don't have a problem with it as long as it's seen in the correct light. So I grew up, basically, I was born Muslim. My parents are Muslim, alhamdulillah. But we weren't really, like, my family wasn't practicing Islam. Not only that, I think a lot of immigrant parents have a certain lifestyle. My parents are like many immigrant parents, like my dad came to America in, I want to say, the late 60s, early 70s. And then me and my siblings were all born in America, in the States. But a lot of times, I think, and this may be a little bit of a difference between like the UK and the US. I know in the UK, people really tend to hold on to their culture a lot more. This is my understanding, Allahu Alam. And the US, it may or may not be that way. And so my family, we're kind of cultural, but not like super cultural. And a lot of times, you know, the Deen and Islam gets passed down and gets passed to like our kids through our culture, because we kind of, you know, make them the same thing. We make culture and Islam the same thing. So, you know, as we have our kids hold on to their culture, we have them hold on to Islam as well. Yeah. In my case, we did whatever Islam I had was, yeah, through my culture, but we weren't like super cultural. So that's why I didn't have much of Islam either. I didn't have the typical experience that a lot of kids have whose parents are immigrants. I didn't really have any Muslim friends growing up. I didn't go to Sunday school. I didn't really go to the masjid.
So what triggered the Islamic renaissance within you then?
Yeah, so to kind of fast forward, you know, I actually didn't, I identified as being Muslim, but if you really asked me anything about Islam, I didn't really know a lot. Sure. And even I look back at my life, and, you know, people would often ask me, like, do you believe in God? And I would say, look, I don't know. I don't really think about it. So that's the life that I came from. And then in college, or as you all call it, university, that's where, you know, I started to really look for the purpose of life, and, you know, I started asking myself the big questions, and I was taking a lot of psychology classes as well. And kind of asking myself the big questions. And the big questions for me are, what is the purpose of life? Yes. What happens after you die? And so on and so forth. And that kind of led me down a path to seeking the purpose of life, and then eventually Islam. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. All right, fantastic. I thought it is good to set the scene. Introduce yourself to myself, to our listenership, inshallah. And when we come back in the second half of the hour, I really want to ask you some questions about skateboarding and snowboarding. I mean, that sounds
sure.
pretty cool, and I'm sure our listeners will be interested in that. But let's talk about the subject matter at hand, Saad, and that is Ramadan, preparing for Ramadan. Now, you know, the picture from the US is very bleak when it comes to the coronavirus and the statistics, and we see some of the states, especially New York, which is of course the epicenter for coronavirus in the US. But pretty much, you know, kind of that's been replicated globally, right? It's a phenomena. It's a context. It's unprecedented, right, for any of us, for all of us, unless, you know, we go to our grandparents, great-grandparents, who probably lived through one of the major wars, right, and maybe experiencing something similar. That's the kind of background context, right, where we haven't got our masajids this Ramadan. We haven't got our taraweehs in the masajids this Ramadan, right? We haven't got the Qiyam al-Layl potentially in Ramadan, right? So we've got a challenge on our hands, right? But of course, from your perspective, the focus for today's first hour and the conversation with you is more for the youth. And subhanAllah, one of the very positive things is that the youth generally, alhamdulillah, flock to the masajid in the UK. At least, you know, you see a lot of the youth, mashallah, in those masajid, and it's a spiritual boost, isn't it? Ramadan is a spiritual boost, right? That atmosphere, collective atmosphere, is a spiritual boost. How are we going to deal with this shit?
Yeah, so to start off this conversation, we really have to put things in perspective, right? So, as Muslims, as believers, we have a principle that we understand, and that is that when we are put through a difficulty, when we're put through a calamity, when we're put through a challenge, it can either be a test from Allah, or it can be a form of punishment. And our scholars would often say the way to recognize one from the other is very simple. And that is this: if we recognize this difficulty as a test, it's a test. If we don't recognize it as a difficulty, may Allah protect us, it may be a form of punishment. So it's very simple. When a hardship comes upon us and we say, Allah is testing me, alhamdulillah, that becomes a test. And that automatically transforms it. And I don't know if transform is the right word, but it automatically helps us understand that this difficulty is something that can bring us closer to Allah. And that is all difficulties, all challenges. And we have so many ayat and hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where we are reminded that not only is going through a difficulty, a test from Allah, but also it is an indication that Allah loves us. And the Prophet ﷺ literally said, when Allah loves someone, He tests them. And those who are tested the most severely are the prophets. And then those most like them and those most like them, meaning the more similar we are to the prophets, the more severe our tests will be. So without a doubt, as long as we recognize that this is a test from Allah, alhamdulillah, that means this is a sign of Allah's love for us, and Allah wants to bring us closer to Him. And so that also means that every difficulty, every challenge will have blessings that are associated with it. So in these last few months, and I know like in the US it's been maybe about a month, a little bit more than a month, my goal has been, especially when it comes to teaching and talking to other people, has been to really put things in the proper perspective. And that is that, yeah, it's a difficulty, but also it's a unique way, it's a unique opportunity for us to get close to Allah in a way that perhaps we weren't doing so before. So instead of looking at it like, you know what, this Ramadan is going to be terrible, we can't go to the masjid, we can't do this, we can't do that. And even like today's the day of Jum'ah, right? Even Jum'ah. Yes. It's very easy to kind of like sulk and say, you know what, this Jum'ah, it just doesn't feel like Jum'ah. I didn't get ready to go to the masjid. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is through this challenge, how can I use the blessings of this challenge to get closer to Allah in a way that I wasn't doing so before? So this can be a wake-up call for us as Muslims. This can be a special year for us, where we, inshallah ta'ala, years later look back and say, 2020 was the year where everything changed, and I got close to Allah in a way that I never did before. And I often say, like in Ramadan, we kind of go into like this automated, behavior, right? So you wake up in the morning, you have suhoor, you do this, you do that, and you go pray tarawih, and then you do this, and then it just goes on, and unfortunately, Ramadan, like our other acts of worship, sometimes becomes just like this ritualistic thing that we do without it really impacting our souls that much. Not everyone, but sometimes we can fall into that. And so this year, inshallah ta'ala, is a way for us to break out of that and say, I really have to work hard this year to make sure that I'm benefiting from the month of Ramadan with these unique challenges that we have.
Right, so subhanAllah. So you mashallah, I give you a good few minutes to lay the scene. You said quite a lot, and also I got, of course, I'm working from my home studio, so I've got interrupted by my youngest son, who you might have heard in the background. But okay, remaining positive, proper perspective on things, using the blessings of the challenge, recognizing the positive, and the opportunities in everything that we see around us, right? That's the kind of messages that I'm hearing, right? Well, which is fantastic, because then we're obviously dealing with the kind of negativity and not being negative. That's not part of Islam. Not being pessimistic, not allowing things to, pull you down. I get that, but with the youth, right? They kind of and it's natural for human beings. You kind of influence one another. You kind of like to do things collectively, and now suddenly you're being forced to look at things as individuals. What would you advise the youth from that perspective?
So first of all, when you say we're looking at things as individuals, I don't know if that is completely the case. I think if this happened 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, we would be in a very different situation. We would truly be isolated. But alhamdulillah, we're living in a time now. I mean, even like what we're doing right now is a testimony to that very idea, right? The fact that we're connected. You're in the UK, I'm in the States. We're in two different time zones.
Yes.
There's an ocean in between us, but we are connected. And what are we doing? We're actually helping each other in our spirituality. And so we do, alhamdulillah, like we have the means. It's just an idea. It's just for us to really recognize and pinpoint what those means are and take advantage of them. So just as, previous Ramadans where we would encourage one another, and maybe we would do so, because we had, we would physically see each other, but we still have all the means of communication. We can call each other, FaceTime, whatever else, video calling, Zoom, and all that kind of stuff. This Ramadan should be a Ramadan where we really focus on keeping those connections alive. And through those connections, we can actually strengthen our faith as well. So imagine, subhanAllah, waking up for suhoor, and calling your friends that may be struggling with that, and encouraging them to get up and have suhoor, encouraging them to pray fajr, and even tarawih. Tarawih definitely is going to be a challenge. But imagine calling up your friends and saying, look, I plan on reciting, I don't know, half a page today for tarawih. What are you planning on reciting? And why those particular ayat? What do these ayat teach us? So involving, making an effort to really make this a communal Ramadan, as opposed to, as I said, just kind of going through the motions. And subhanAllah, even in when we do come together as a community in tarawih and the masjid and stuff, it's, if we're really being honest, we kind of, once again, it's very automated, right? You go to the masjid, you get in line, you pray, and then you go home. And maybe like you hang out with your friends and stuff after, and you go out for coffee or something like that. But it's still very individualistic, and that's kind of the society that we live in.
Right. So,
but yeah.
Right. Ustaz, we've got about 4 minutes before we go to a commercial break, right? So, I mean, when we're talking about youth, and of course you've been addressing the youth for a while. I mean, what specific challenges do you see when it comes to Ramadan and youth? What are the key kind of key points to address for the youth when it comes to Ramadan, right? Whether we're in lockdown or not in lockdown, right? What would be those key messages for the youth from a Ramadan perspective?
Yeah, so not only youth, but all of us, we really need to figure out what motivates us to make this the best month, the best Ramadan of our life, actually. Not just the best month out of the year, but the best month of our life. And the reality is that, and I know people, I've seen this happen a lot. People think of the youth as this monolith. It's just the youth and their problems and their issues. But the reality is every single young person is dealing with their unique set of challenges. So when you find a young person who is away from the deen, they're away from Allah, it isn't because they're just young and that's the only reason. It's because they live a certain lifestyle and they have certain challenges and they have certain things that they are dealing with that may be keeping them away from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this Ramadan is no different in that sense, where I feel that we really have to take some time and ask ourselves on an individual level, like so for ourselves, and say, well, what is really keeping me from connecting with Allah this Ramadan? And also for our families, for our loved ones, and as I said earlier, making this a communal issue, right? So someone is young, someone has friends. How do I motivate my friends to be more attached to Allah in this Ramadan? And I often say the best person to give someone da'wah, the best person to invite someone else to goodness, is the one who knows them the best. So you can have like the greatest speaker and lecturer in the world, but if they don't know who they're talking to, they don't have an understanding for them, it's going to be hard for them to connect with that person. But when you know someone and you understand them and you understand what they're going through, it gives you this unique ability to really connect with them. So this is not a response. I'm not absolving myself of the responsibility, but at the same time, I do want to say we have to take this challenge on for ourselves, for our friends, and for our families to really begin to reach out and see what unique challenges everyone has that is keeping them away from connecting with Allah this particular year.
Right. Okay, Jazakallah khair for that. Inshallah, we're going to go into a commercial break in about a minute, about 1 minute, Ustad Saad. So what I will do, inshallah, if I may, is stop that conversation there, and we'll come back to you, inshallah, in about 5 minutes. Is that okay, inshallah?
Sure.
All right, Jazakallah khair. All right, listeners, this is Hafiz Sha'ban on Friday Night Live. I am with Ustad Saad, Tasleem, and we are discussing preparing for Ramadan. And mashallah, excellent conversations, some excellent tips there being shared with the Ustad. If you have any questions, I want to remind you that you can reach out and put any direct questions to the Ustad via social media, 07779481822. To send in your SMS and WhatsApp messages, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, you can also call us in the studio, and the call will be forwarded on to myself. When we come back, inshallah ta'ala, I've got another 20-25 minutes to speak with the Ustaz on preparing for Ramadan. I want to keep it youth-oriented, inshallah ta'ala, but inshallah we can ask some wider general context questions around Ramadan and preparing for Ramadan. Inshallah ta'ala, don't go away. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Friday Night Live.
Democracy only works for those who are advocating it.
Not working. This idea is sold to the Muslim world throughout, day in and day out. If you look at the leading nation that represents democracy in the world, this is how it treats its minorities.
Join in the conversation with me, Abdul Akbar, and my guests every Fridays from 6 p.m.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban. It is Friday the 17th of April, corresponding, I believe, to around the 23rd of Sha'ban, 1441. So we are almost a week away from Ramadan. We are a week away from Ramadan, which means we should have been preparing for Ramadan. We should have our plans ready for Ramadan. We should be psychologically, mentally, spiritually, physically ready for the month of Ramadan, a stone throw away. We of course make dua to Allah, Allahumma barik lana fi Sha'ban wa ballighna Ramadan, to allow us to witness blessings for Ramadan. But if you're still not in the mindset of Ramadan, then we're helping you get into that mood and get into that mindset, get ready for Ramadan, because we are of course discussing preparing for Ramadan. And we have been in conversation with Ustad Saad Tasleem all the way from the United States, inshallah ta'ala. We'll continue that conversation for the next about 25 minutes, inshallah. And then at 7 o'clock, we've got a special live transmission from Ustad Masroor, who's also going to be discussing a very similar subject matter. So earlier, first half an hour of the show, mashallah, we were discussing with the Ustad from US. We had a bit of an introduction about the Ustad, his background, etc. And then we went straight into a deep dive in terms of Ramadan, preparing for Ramadan. Some of the challenges that we're inevitably going to face this Ramadan, because this Ramadan is very, very different to previous Ramadan in terms of our social settings. The month of Ramadan is the same. The blessings, the mercy, the forgiveness are the same. But what is changing is our of course social settings, right? That's gonna change. That's gonna bring a bit of challenge, but as the Saad was saying, that's also gonna bring with it opportunities, inshallah. 07779481822 for your social media messages. 07779481822. If you want to put a question direct to the Sheikh, please send those SMS, WhatsApp messages and questions to me, and I'll get that to the Ustad. 01582481822 the number in the studio, inshallah. With that, let me go straight back to the Ustad, inshallah, and resume the conversation with Ustad Saad Tasleem. And when I'm going to resume that, let me resume that from where I left the introduction from, right? And that was very interesting to read, Ustad, about your appetite and your, of course, interest around skateboarding and snowboarding. I mean, snowboarding fascinates me whenever I see some videos on snowboarding. Mashallah, how big of a fan are you when it comes to snowboarding, Ustad?
Well, actually, so in high school, So
Right.
a lot of kids in high school usually they go the route of playing some type of sport. I mean, sports
Yeah.
are really big in the U.S. as
Yeah.
they are in the U.K. as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's football or basketball and so on and so forth. My lifestyle was a little bit of an alternative lifestyle, so I was more into skating,
Right.
some snowboarding as well. I mean, snowboarding is really
Yeah.
restricted to about 4 or 5 months out of the year where I live,
Nice.
and you kind of have to drive about an hour away. So, it takes some snowboarding trips. Just from my jahiliyyah, from my past, but also like music and stuff. So that's pretty much where my focus was. So that's
Right.
that's what we're talking about, with my exposure to
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Right, right. No, no, alhamdulillah. It's good to see the skateboarding and snowboarding is different, right? And a lot of the youth nowadays they're into similar stuff. Whether it's MMA, whether it's boxing, whether it's martial arts, or whether it's some of these adventure sports or some of these what they term as extreme sports. So for someone who's gone and studied the Deen, graduated, and then now doing the da'wah and also associating with that, definitely, the youth can connect to that and they know, hey, there's someone here with a similar background, similar interest, but you know what, he's speaking about the Deen, right? So let me let me lend him an ear, and that in itself, alhamdulillah, is a means of connecting with the youth, mashallah. I mean, do you find that that kind of background helps in that kind of field of da'wah with the youth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
That, and I think the other thing that I try to do is I try my best to humanize myself, and I say that in the context of, in my field,
Mm.
lecturing and da'wah and speaking and so on and so forth. A lot of times, a
Right.
lot of my peers and a lot of my, even like my mentors and my teachers, uh, a lot of times young people will view like our scholars and imams and sheikhs and so on and so forth, and view them kind of as almost as if they're
Yeah.
from a different world, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
when an
Yeah.
imam talks about the worship of Allah, and even now with fasting and all this kind of stuff, a lot of young people have a
Mm.
tendency to be like, yeah, that's cool, that's great. They're just this amazing person. They're, this
Mm.
amazing Muslim, and that's great for
No.
them, but I will never reach
No.
that level. So it's
No.
very important for me that, my students and people that I speak to, especially young people, that they understand that I'm a human
No.
being just like them, and I've faced certain challenges as well. But my goal is to really inspire people to
No.
get close, continue to strive to get close to Allah, even though we're imperfect, even though
No.
we all
No.
commit sins, we all have
No. No.
flaws, but
No.
despite that, to continue to
Yeah.
work to better our relationship with Allah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mashallah, I really second that, and I really support that. The humanizing element that the ustad and the sheikh, you might find him in the gym, mashallah, which is, well, ustad, really, do you go to the gym? Do you work out? Do you like the weightlifting, cardio? Skateboarding, subhanallah, is that human element. It's not an angel that's been sent down from the heavens to come and teach you the deen. But as Allah
Yeah.
subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah sent an insan to teach you the deen because it is a message for insan, from insan, inshallah ta'ala,
Right.
with a medium being the angels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses. But alhamdulillah, fantastic, jazakallah khair, Ustad. That's good, a bit of connection there with our listenership, inshallah ta'ala, as we go into a deep dive in the second half of the show, right? And I'm going to try to kind of fire off a number of questions around Ramadan, around let's start out. What would be your kind of top 3 or 5 tips coming to Ramadan for our listeners? What are those 3, 5 top tips that you would give to people who are listening today? And we're trying to boost up, right, our listenership around preparing for Ramadan, and we've got a number of other kind of programs and the mashallah Inspire station. There's a fantastic, it's a Ramadan special when it comes to the month of Ramadan, but even in the run up to Ramadan, to really get that community spirit ready for Ramadan. What are your top tips for Ramadan?
Yeah. So first of all, I would recommend for everyone to really go into Ramadan with a game plan. And that sometimes means, actually scheduling your days. And when I say scheduling your days, I don't mean make this crazy schedule for yourself that you're not going to stick to, or you're going to stick to for a couple of days or maybe a day and then it's done. Set very realistic, doable, achievable goals for yourself and say, this is how I want to plan my Ramadan. And, our scholars of the past, sometimes they would divide Ramadan into 3 sections. The first 10 days, second 10 days, and obviously we know the merits of the last 10 days. But that really serves to kind of reevaluate the progress you've made and how you can learn from what you have, the changes you've made, and improve upon that. So at the very least, like my first tip is for the first 10 days, make a schedule for yourself. And once again, a realistic schedule. And don't show this schedule to anybody else, because people might judge you and say like, oh, the schedule says that you're going to be sleeping 3-4 hours during the day, and people may shame you for that. But realistically, a lot of people do that, right? So be real with who you are, but also leave room in there for improvement. So say, okay, you know what? The first 10 days or the first week, I'm going to recite Quran, I don't know, for 10 minutes. And to a lot of people, if they hear that, they may say, that's it. Ramadan is the month of the Quran, and you're going to recite 10 minutes. So this is for you, because in the end of the day, this Ramadan, especially now, we're feeling this Ramadan is about your connection with Allah and improving from where you are. So number one, as I said, have a game plan, know what you're getting into, and so you can plan your days. And even if you cannot stick to it 100%, that's fine. But at least it gives you goals. Number two.
Just before that, a very quick question. Game plan, I get that. Put a realistic plan together. Now that we're in a kind of a lockdown situation, we might be living with other siblings, a husband and wife, spending a lot more time together, maybe children. Good idea to share those game plans as a family, among siblings, as a family unit, to encourage one another, perhaps. What do you think?
Yeah, so it depends. So for example, I'm married, I have 2 kids. And so as a parent and as someone who has 2 kids, I would share that, like from a perspective of a dad, of a father. Definitely as a family, we should have a game plan and say, look, as a family, this is what we're going to do. And then there may be, from the perspective of somebody who's single, who's young, and they may need their own specific game plan and say, look, for me, this is my struggle. And as a mom, for example, so it really depends on your, where you are in that family dynamic. But as a head of a household or as somebody who's part of the family, definitely that would be awesome.
Right. The other thing which I just picked up on your comment about the scholars, and even the fact that the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the rahmah, the maghfirah, and adqa min an-nar, right? The 3 segments of Ramadan. I tell you, whilst you were talking, one of the things that I reflected upon is, why don't we use a good idea is that end of 10 days being a checkpoint, right? End of 10 days being a checkpoint. Where am I against the plan? As opposed to waiting right to the end of Ramadan for a checkpoint. Far too late. It's gone.
Yeah.
What do you
absolutely,
think
absolutely.
About that regular checkpoint?
Exactly. It's very important that during the month of Ramadan, we constantly evaluate our progress to see, and I often say, sometimes people treat Ramadan as an all or nothing, right? My Ramadan was either a success or a failure. I either, started praying or I didn't. I started reciting Quran or I did, and that's not how it has to be. It can be, it's a progression, inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah. All right. So we were tip 1, game plan, right?
Okay.
Tip 2.
Yeah, so tip 1, as I said, goals, game plan. Number 2, and this is a little bit more theoretical, but quality over quantity. And what I mean by that is that, look, in our deen, in Islam, apart from the fara'id, so apart from the obligatory deeds, quality is always better than quantity. So even you can take a look at, for example, the prayer, right? So we have our fard prayers, our obligatory prayers. Other than the obligatory prayers, it is always better to have quality rather than quantity. There's a hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, in which she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said, which deed is most beloved to Allah? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, he said, أَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلْ. He said, the most beloved deeds or action to Allah is that one which is done consistently, even if it is small. So consistency being quality, right? So focus on, and I'd say like even if you have just a few things, it's okay, but make sure you're trying to transform them into quality deeds. So once again, if it's reciting the Quran, if it's praying, even Qiyamul Layl, right? So now that, Tahajjud and Qiyamul Layl, we're kind of on our own now, right? We don't have the luxury of going to the masjid, standing behind somebody and praying with them. You're on your own. You got to take care of yourself. So instead of saying to yourself, you know what, I got to do an hour, right? Like I used to do in the masjid, and then the quality just goes down the drain. Say to yourself, I'll do 10 minutes, right? Or, I'll do 15 minutes, whatever I can do, but I'm going to make sure that, I'm contemplating the Quran, I'm putting the quality in there. So that's number 2, quality over quantity. Number 3, make sure Ramadan is not just about you, it's about others as well. And I know we are isolated, but as I said earlier, or quarantine, I should say, there are still ways to connect with other people. So as in Ramadan, we know that the reward of feeding the other person, we get their reward. So how can we get the reward of other people as well? How do we do that? Well, by encouraging them, by showing them the good deeds. So even waking somebody up for suhoor, inshallah ta'ala, you get the reward for their suhoor if you wake them up. So it's just about being a little bit more creative this year and how we encourage others.
Yeah, and that tip 3, I really like that. You mentioned that earlier. The quality of وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, right? That there's the surah Al-Asr. It's about encouraging one another, and I think that's going to be a very important factor this Ramadan. As you say, you are in lockdown and you're not visiting one another, you're not visiting your friends, but we're always virtually connected, we're always speaking, and it's going to be about encouraging one another to do good, in the ibadat, in the supererogatory actions, and so on and so forth. Let's not undermine that, and let's remember that that's going to be quite a key factor this Ramadan, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, I think those 3 tips are great tips there, mashallah. Game plan, getting a plan in place, quality, not necessarily quantity, and it's also consistency that we need to remember. And then, of course, last one is Ramadan is not just about you, but others also. And we know that there's a huge drive for voluntary work and voluntary, help and assistance. I know normally in the month of Ramadan, subhanAllah, people are out there, whether it's volunteering for masajids, in helping them with the huge demands in Ramadan, whether it's helping the charity organizations, other voluntary organizations, because of course Ramadan is a huge month of sadaqah, and a lot of those opportunities, whilst they're not going to be there, there are still going to be other opportunities. And subhanAllah, a good perspective that you've given it, Saad, is that actually there's going to be other different opportunities this time, which you probably didn't have previously, right? And I think that's what it's about, recognizing those and latching onto those. All right, subhanAllah. All right, so we've got about 6-7 minutes remaining, inshallah ta'ala, right? So okay, we've got those tips, we've got the practical planning for Ramadan that we've discussed. I know, mashallah, looking at your one of the websites earlier, that you've got a seminar coming up in terms of Ramadan Q&As. Is that correct, in a couple of days' time?
Yeah, so what I've been doing, so most of my work before the coronavirus involved traveling. I would travel to different communities, different countries, even I've been to the UK quite a bit, and teaching. And so all of that obviously shut down. So the natural progression of that was, okay, using social media, using the internet to continue to educate, especially young Muslims, but all Muslims. And so I've become a lot more active online, and so I've taken advantage. I've had a YouTube channel for a long time that I really wasn't consistent with, but now I've started to do a lot of live sessions online. So my 2 main outlets right now are my YouTube channel and my Instagram. Until recently, especially when the corona hit really hard, I was doing a daily live discussion on my Instagram. So people, log in and just we're there for each other, to support each other and encourage each other in goodness. So I will continue to do that. So number one, my YouTube channel, I am doing a live Ramadan Q&A, and that does deal a lot with preparing for Ramadan and any questions and concerns people have, especially this year, because we're dealing with some unique challenges. No. So that will be April 20th, inshallah. It's 4 p.m. my time. I believe that's 9 p.m. UK time, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so that's one of many other live lectures and discussions that I have coming up on my YouTube channel, inshallah.
Right, so I forgot to ask you, Ustaz, what state are you based out of?
I'm in Maryland. And I know
that it makes
much.
Yeah, exactly. Where is that? I was going to ask you next question.
So I know for Brits, and I have a lot of friends in the UK, and like I said, I travel to the UK quite a bit. I know immediately, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. You thought about the cookies, am I right?
Yeah, I did actually. The first thing that comes to my mind is the cookies, right?
Yeah. So, and I've actually had those cookies because a friend of mine said, you got to try the Maryland cookies. I know that's how you said, but the best way for me to describe it, I'm right next to the Capitol, right next to Washington D.C.
Okay. Subhanallah. Right. So that adds to our time difference, man. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit,
quite considerably. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we've got a good few minutes remaining, inshallah. Very, very quickly. All right. Is there a huge difference, do you think, between the youth in the US and the UK and the kind of Ramadan challenges and syndromes that we're discussing? Or is it quite similar, would you say?
So look, I think the culture, there is a difference of culture without a doubt. That's no matter where you go in the world. Even though we live in a globalized world now, we still do have cultures that are different. We have a lot of similarities, but there are differences. But I do think that the core challenges remain the same. So for young people, it's very simple. Like the way if I look at the challenges that they're facing, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that the shaitan, his two main methods of misleading people or getting people away from Allah, or getting people to disbelief, actually, he said, is shahawat wa shubuhat. He said shahawat meaning desires, shubuhat meaning doubts. And I see this across the board, across the world, that when a young person is feeling distant from the deen, it's either because of like worldly desires and temptations, or like doubts that have crept into like their faith. So in terms of those, I think that the core challenges remain the same across the board. But yeah, there are cultural differences without a doubt.
Right. All right. Subhanallah. And last but not least, in terms of the societal influences on the youth, right? I mean, currently with lockdown, a lot of alternative entertainment channels, a lot of media which is previously, or at least kind of online entertainment that was subscription based, is being made available free. The kind of Netflix and a lot of all the other stuff that's becoming a lot more accessible, available, to kind of help us through our boredom in being in lockdown, right? That's a very negative way of looking at lockdown, dealing with lockdown, and especially when it comes to Ramadan, right? So, hey guys, use the social media because we haven't got access to masajid. So already, subhanallah, in terms of the programs, the lectures, the institutes, and what they're promoting over the next few weeks for Ramadan, fantastic to use that. But then you've also got the negative side of it, which is spending hours, and wasting hours in stuff that is not going to benefit us. A word or two on that, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, for the past few years, quite a few years, entertainment online has been a challenge, right? Because you're fasting, you may be home, whatever, you're hungry. A quick way to pass the time is to binge watch stuff on Netflix or whatever it may be. This year, that challenge is even more amplified because we're stuck in the house. So it is quite easy to fall into that, into that zone of just binge watching and just spending like hours and hours and hours online, just entertaining ourselves with things which are not, good for our soul. They're not good for us in progressing our deen, especially in Ramadan. So, number one, alhamdulillah, a lot of our scholars and da'at and speakers and institutes, they have stepped up. And they're offering a lot more online now. So you are going to, and that's the reality, like hashtag real talk, like you're going to be online. That's just the reality of, the world we're living in. But use that online time to maybe educate yourself, right? So attend as many things as you can, because if you're going to be online, you might as well be doing something that, inshallah, will inspire you to get close to Allah. I know myself, as I said earlier, I've stepped up how active I am online as well, for the very reason that I know people are going to be online no matter what. So I'd rather they spend time with me and we help each other get close to Allah than just wasting hours on social media. Also, the other thing I would say is, if you're going to be online, maybe use that online time to help other people. We talked about helping other people, but maybe take on a project, or maybe work with, we have, alhamdulillah, so many charity institutes. We have so much going on. Volunteer in any one of these organizations of your choice, and contact them. Say, I have time coming up in Ramadan. Well, how can I help you? So now you're spending that time online, maybe helping a charity organization raise money, different projects, and now that same online time gets used in a way that can help us, inshallah.
Right. Jazakallah, Ustad Saad, Tasleem. Alhamdulillah, we've run out of time, but alhamdulillah, I can genuinely say I really enjoyed the conversation for the last hour, and really appreciate your time all the way from the US, giving it to us on Friday Night Live and Inspire from Jazakallah khair, Ustad. And inshallah, I pray that I didn't get a status update from you with regards to coronavirus in the States, especially the Muslim community. I mean, it's well known in terms of what the status is, but maybe next time. But stay safe, and inshallah, pray that the Muslim community stay safe, as well as the wider humanity, inshallah, and we get through this pandemic, through this trial, and we witness the month of Ramadan, and may it be an accepted month of Ramadan for all of us, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Ustad.
Thank you for having me. Wa iyyakum. Barakallah feekum.
Barakallah feekum, Ustad. Okay, listeners, that was Ustad Saad Tasleem, and we were in conversation with the Ustad from the States in terms of preparing for Ramadan. And mashallah, I really enjoyed that conversation. It's going to be available on the website, on the podcast, inshallah, very soon. We are running out of time. And as I said earlier, it is a special focus on preparing for Ramadan on Friday Night Live for the 2 hours, right? So when we come back, inshallah, after the commercial break, we're going to go straight to a live transmission from Ustad Ajmal Masroor, preparing for Ramadan. We're here to get you ready in the spirit, psychologically, spiritually, for the month of Ramadan. Let's help one another, as the Ustad said. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Until next week, when I'll be back with Friday Night Live, it is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh from me, Hafiz Sha'ban, and over to the live transmission for Ajmal Masroor on preparing for Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.